Okay, I think we are good to go. Let me just sign in. Can you hear me, Nath? Alrighty, I think we are live. Nathan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Cool. I think it's just a delay on my end. Alrighty, welcome to Super Coach Mates. This is a little bit different. This is both me and Nathan's first time doing it. As you can see, it's a little bit of a different setup that we've got going from our normal pre-recorded stuff that you would have seen on YouTube or Spotify. So please disregard any mishaps that we have along the way. This is a bit of a dodgy setup. I have on my phone recording the screen. So this could crash at any moment. But as we mentioned on our socials, this is a little bit different. We've decided as the Supercoach season is kind of slowly petering away, and Nathan's heavily involved in draft. We'll have a chat about that in a little bit. We've decided, I've had a few messages asking about box breaks and things like that, and footy cards in general, but I decided to pick one up on the way in, and we decided a bit of a box break. I know there's a few of you guys, I know Kane said hello in the chat. Hope you're doing well, buddy. There's a few of you who have requested for specific teams that have purchased through the stuff I've been putting on social. That's perfectly fine. Hopefully we pull some big stuff for you as we talk through this evening. As I might not have mentioned it on socials, but hopefully I'll get those out to you guys once we finish this stream. I will get in contact with each of you that have actually purchased a spot, and I'll get in contact with your address and everything like that, so we can get that sorted to you straight away. But hopefully I'll send them all out on Monday. Most likely, unless there's any massive pulls being pulled, I'll probably send them in letters with a bit of bubble wrap as well to protect the cards. And hopefully you can enjoy that. We'll see how this goes. It's a bit off the cap a little bit and a bit impromptu as well. But if this does well, then we'll hopefully do another one later in the season. As I said, this is more one-off as me and Nathan have a bit of time up our sleeves with a bit of a holiday. So how you been, Nathan? And you looking forward to the Friday night game with your Pies?
Yeah, hello everyone. It's I'm looking forward to Friday night. It should be a good game, hopefully. I've just been busy with holiday care and whatnot, so got a bit of time up my hands. So I'm looking forward to the stream tonight.
Alrighty, nice. I'm just gonna open this box up to get started. So just a quick recap whilst I get this fresh box open and set up. Those of you who purchased a spot, just a shout out to, I know they're pretty hard to fill normally. Let me just get quickly who actually purchased a spot and who's watching as well. So give me 2 ticks.
Yeah, I could see Lee Montague on here, Thomas. That's a bit out there.
Bit of an old card there. Bit of a throwback to when we were half decent. So those who purchased a spot, I know, shout out to the legend himself. Where is he? I've just lost it. Supercoach with DR, I know he's been a big supporter of us when we've been in contact with him. I know we're doing a potty with him later in next week, hopefully. So that'll be good fun. But he's obviously got the Lions boys set up. I know Kane's in the chat there. He's purchased himself the Blues boys. So hopefully we get something decent for him. Either a Walsh or Cripps might be nice. North Melbourne, you got Corey. I know Corey have had a bit of a run-in with a lot of the Supercoach content creators. It's really good to have your support as well. So you got the North boys. The Dogs, a lady called Peter, I mispronounced that name, but she reached out to me over the socials, and it's for her son. So hopefully we get some good stuff for you. And I think that's about it at the moment, unless I missed anyone. I think that's pretty much it. But the rest of the cards, especially, the base ones, no one really wants anyway, but Any big pulls that we do get, we might do a giveaway on our socials later on in the season. We'll see how that goes. But whilst I get this ripped open to open up the first pack, Nathan, what are your thoughts on, obviously, the first game of the round? I'm actually going in this game as well, so it should be pretty big. What are your thoughts on the game, and do you think your boys have a half a chance of winning it?
Yeah, so obviously, for those of you that don't know, I am a Collingwood supporter. So my view on this is going to be very biased. So yeah, obviously I think we're a massive chance on Friday night. Obviously I think Essendon's finals credentials are under question, given they haven't beaten anyone above them on the ladder. I don't think I even think they've beaten anyone in the top 8. So yeah, I think this is a big game for both sides.
Mm-hmm.
There are problems for both sides, especially defensively.
Yeah.
I think Collingwood have ranked 17th for midfield intercepts, which is a very, very critical premiership sort of credential. And I think Essendon are still struggling a little bit at defending turnovers. So I think this game's just going to be whoever can get the ball inside their forward 50 the most, and just lock it in there, which I would probably say Collingwood would probably get less entry, but I think they're more efficient. So I think based on that, I would have to go for Collingwood, with the only caveat being, obviously, I'm doing this before teams have been announced. So I'm just mindful of the fact that I think Collingwood are going to have a few outs. And but I'm going to tip Collingwood. Purely because at the MCG, and Collingwood actually have a good record there, and Essendon don't have that good a record there under Brad Scott.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to sway me towards picking Collingwood, but I think it should be a good game either way.
Yeah, nice. Just the first two pulls we've hit, obviously, not amazing ones, but James Warple, 100 gamer, and Ed Langdon, 150 that we were seeing, and obviously Cause you off to a decent start with regards to base cards. You've got Jai Simpkin and Griffin Logue. Just my 2 cents whilst we get this underway with regards to the Collingwood Dons game. I think it's a big game for both clubs, as you rightly pointed out, Nath, with regards to the fact that, you know, you're both vying for a top 8 spot, and you really don't want to muck this up, especially with, you know, you got a decent amount of boys coming back from injury. Essendon really have a point to prove. I've actually tipped Essendon, as much as Nathan would hate me saying that. But I think, if anything, those guys have to win it to show they're worthy of a top 4 spot realistically, because as we saw, you know, they've definitely had games where they've been in a good position and showed how dominant they can be, where they're kind of kamikaze style footy, or forward to centre footy, as some would say. But Collingwood, obviously, the benchmark for that. That's how they won the premiership. But what are your thoughts, Nathan, on kind of any key matchups that you're looking forward to that could decide the game?
Yeah, so obviously Darcy Moore's copped his fair wax this week.
Yeah.
I think so. I think whoever goes to him is going to have a big night for them.
Yeah.
I think 2 meter Peter is a massive player in this game.
Yeah.
I think if he can get off the chain, I think it's going to be hard for Collingwood to win.
Yeah.
The Essendon ruck situation's interesting as well. I feel like they can't keep picking both Goldstein and Draper. I just think that's too tall.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to have to make a decision there. If I was Brad Scott, I would be going Draper this week and leaving Goldie out. And then I think the other question for Essendon is, what are they going to do with Ridley? I feel like Ridley's the key to Essendon's defence profile improving.
Yeah.
And I feel like if he's on an opponent, it sort of takes away what he's good at.
Mm-hmm.
And then just with Collingwood, what does the second game back do for Pendlebury and DeGoey and Joe Richards after a long layoff? Are they going to be a little bit flat? Sometimes a second up can be a bit of a down game.
Yeah.
And then the Collingwood forward line still, I know my check's in there, but Kruger's been down a few weeks he's been down in form for a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a lot of the game's going to be decided by what the Collingwood forward line can do and what the Essendon back line can do. I think whoever wins that battle will go a long way towards winning the game.
Yeah, 100%. I guess that's it. Yeah, very good summation. So we'll see how that game goes. I think it'll be regardless a very close game.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can I just butt in as well?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I think the loser of this game cannot finish in the top 4.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think you've nailed that on the head. Just moving quickly, I'm just getting the games up on my laptop real quick. The next game, obviously... Oh, yeah, you've got them up as well. Yeah, blockbuster, North versus Suns. Who have you gone for that one?
Well, it'd be hard to go past the Gold Coast Suns, other than the fact that this game is not at People First Stadium.
Yeah.
It's on the road, and Gold Coast record on the road this year has been horrendous. So I'm not really sure how they're going to go, but I still think that the Suns should be winning this game. And as for North Melbourne, they've improved from where they were in the first half of the year. But if Gold Coast are realistic, they will not be losing this game.
Yeah, 100%. I think, as you mentioned there, Gold Coast really need to, stamp their authority. They've been very hot and cold. I think there was a stat somewhere that they basically, I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but they've undefeated at People's First Stadium and a shocking away from home. So if you're Alistair Clarkson, you'd be telling your troops that you've got a very fair chance of winning that one. But as I said, it could go to Gold Coast. I think their midfield is just so dominant. Everywhere you look, you got Rao, you've got Noah Anderson, you got Tuke Miller. All those three mids are so dominant. But I think North are growing slowly, but it'll be disappointing, that's for sure, for the Suns if they manage to.
Basically, I saw this on the tackle on the Herald Sun, if anyone reads that on the Sunday after all the games are done. Gold Coast are a top 6 side at home. They're a bottom 6 side away from home.
Yeah.
So I think because they're playing a bottom 6 side and they've got a better sort of list profile than North Melbourne, I think they should be winning.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, their midfield is pretty much one of the best in the comp, so you'd be pretty gutted for those Suns fans out there if you manage to stuff this one up. But what are your thoughts on, obviously, North's, as we get locking in their base card, what are your thoughts on, obviously, the North's profile list? Do you think they're going to get there eventually, or do you think they're still a fair few rebuilds away, or what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, they've got a very good core young group coming forward, but what are your thoughts? And obviously, they've been getting a fair few priority picks in the previous years. Do you think they'll kind of overpass some of these teams, like obviously my boys and things like that, who've been kind of mediocre and not needing a priority pick, but obviously in the flip side, obviously not doing that well either, and they're kind of in the middle of the pack?
Well, I like North Melbourne's midfield.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the rest of their list profile, though.
Yeah.
Their back line, I still think, a key down. Their forward line's still a key down.
Mm-hmm.
But to be fair to North Melbourne, they haven't had access to the best player in the draft for basically their whole time down there.
Yeah.
I mean, I just quote that because the number one pick in, I think, 2021 was Jamara Ugle-Hagan, and he was a next-gen academy pick. And then 2022 is Nick Dacos. The draft into 2022 was Nick Dacos. Which obviously he was linked to Collingwood. And then last year, for whatever reason, they won the final game and they lost Harley Reid.
Yeah.
So they haven't really had the best player in the draft to rely on, which I think possibly held them back. But then again, a lot of number one picks haven't had the ultimate success.
Yeah.
It seems to be in that sort of 3 to 10 range where most of the Brownlow medals, the big name players sort of make their name.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, 100%.
So then you look at North Melbourne's midfield. They got LDU in there. They got Wardlaw in there. They've got Sheasel moved in there. Simpkins a good captain, except when he's getting knocked out.
Yeah.
By Jimmy Webster.
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you did there.
Their back line, as I said, is still probably a key defender down. Their forward line's still a key forward down.
Yeah.
And so it's not the full list, but I feel like the nucleus is there.
Oh yeah, 100%. I guess it'll be, I reckon, a closer game than most would expect, purely because of how bad Gold Coast play away from home. But I guess we'll find that out at 1:45. I guess moving forward to the next game, let me just pop it up on screen, which is a bit of an awkward timing. With
just real quick.
Yeah.
Please gamble responsibly. The line is 18 and the line is 18 points. So if you think Gold Coast will win by less than 3 goals, which I think is a pretty good way, that might be a good bet to put on. But please gamble responsibly.
Now moving onwards to the Port Dogs game. In previous years, this fixture's actually been quite good. Corey's just said Logan Colby back this week. That's big for you boys. Obviously, McKercher is close to rising star capabilities. Had that real awkward foot issue that I think Zach Fisher's gotten now. Obviously, maybe not as serious, but it's a like for like. And Griffin Logue's massive for you boys. He's obviously was very good at Freo, and his defensive stocks have risen. But yeah, moving forward to the North Dogs Port game. In previous fixtures, it's been pretty a blockbuster. What are your thoughts on that game, and who are you tipping?
I don't know what I'm going to get from either of these sides. They've been up and down all year.
Corey's just got Harry Shees with footy head, something to look forward to. Yep, what were you saying?
No, sorry. And I feel like purely based on that reason, I'm going to tip Port Adelaide because they're the home team.
Yeah.
But I have zero confidence in making any predictions about this game.
Yeah.
Because I think both sides could win by 10 goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it could be an absolute classic.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think the Dogs have finals aspirations. They've definitely bounced back from their mediocre start. And Port, obviously I watched them a heartbreak against St Kilda, which was a bit unfortunate. But I think that, Port... Well, I've got a question for you, Nathan. Do you think that Hinkley's got a fair chance of getting sacked by the end of the season, or do you think that the Port boys are going to rally around him and obviously try their hardest to get another win for him, especially in a kind of make or break? Obviously, they're in a position like they are every season to make finals, and they always seem to be in and around that mark, but get slaughtered in finals. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel like 11 years is a long time, and I feel like it might be in Ken Hinkley's best interest to step away.
Yeah.
I just think he's done everything he can with that list. He's basically done everything except win a grand final.
Mm-hmm.
He's got them to, I think, 3 prelims.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's done everything that he can, and I think the same issues are at Port Adelaide this year as what they were last year, in that they can't defend once the ball gets inside their defensive 50. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it's just going to be another year where Port Adelaide you sort of finish in that 5 to 8 no man's land. They
Mm-hmm.
might win a final, but I don't think they're going to be winning the premiership. So I think for Ken, I would be saying, you know what, I did the best possible job I did,
Mm-hmm.
or could, but I need a new challenge, and I need to step away and let the players hear a fresh voice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think you're 100% right. I mean, you just look. I mean, the butt of the joke with Ken Hinkley is that sometimes he's on the bench and he looks like, obviously he's doing his work, he's doing his job, but he looks like a little bit that the assistant coach is doing a lot of the talking upstairs. So who knows with obviously Ken Hinkley, but I think Josh Carr is in the midst of potentially taking over. I'm not exactly sure what the news is there, but I think they're the one they're kind of grooming to get in that position of the next Port coach. But I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
When it comes to that one. But before we move on to kind of that 4:35 game, what are your thoughts? I know I was listening to the Super Coach Saw Play Potty. Shout out to those boys there. They do a really excellent job with regards to the content over there. What are your thoughts? I think it was Spills that mentioned it about having no Thursday night game, but then 2 1:45 games. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that there's, every reason that the AFL should do that, or do you think that fans are kind of starved on a Thursday night?
Well, I'm a bit conflicted about this because I think Thursday night games are hard for people to get to.
Yeah.
Purely because Friday's still a working day.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I can see the benefits of having Thursday night games, because it means that on the Saturday, the games don't have to overlap in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And they could put another blockbuster game on in the middle on that Thursday night. So that's sort of where I'm conflicted. Personally, I think it works well early in the year, but I think as it gets later on in the year, it probably becomes less relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Because sides sort of start dropping away, and then those sort of blockbuster games that might have been there earlier in the year aren't there now.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So I think they've got the right balance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sort of a bit conflicted with Thursday night football.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see both parties. I understand where Spills is coming from in his potty, in the fact that, Thursday is a massive selling point for TV viewership and all that. And you obviously get a fair few blockbuster games when it comes to Thursday night footy. But yeah, I can see
it's a game for the TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Thursday
right.
night.
It makes it hard, especially when you got work Friday morning. That's for sure. But I guess moving forward to the next game, 4:35. This one's an interesting one. I know a mate of mine's actually going down from Victoria to Geelong. He's a Hawks supporter, but Geelong Hawthorn obviously traditionally played on the Easter Monday, but now being played at Alphabet Stadium. What are your thoughts on this one? Obviously the Hawkers are up and about.
Alphabet Stadium.
Hawks up and about. They pretty much look like a top 8 side. What are your thoughts on this one? Do you think the Hawks have got a chance to really stamp their credentials as a top 8 favourite, or do you think Geelong are just too strong down there?
Oh, I think Hawthorn are massive chance.
Yeah.
Most times I would say Geelong favourites down there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they're favourites down there. Again, gamble responsibly.
Yeah.
But I think Hawthorn can go down there and win.
Yeah.
I don't think Geelong are playing well enough to. I don't think they're playing well enough. And I feel like last week they got a bit lucky because Essendon went in really tall in a wet game,
Mm-hmm.
which is strange in itself. But I did notice tactically that Tom Stewart played a different role last week. So he started in centre squares and then he went back. And for those of you who listen to SEN, Daniel Hoyne from Champion Data said we might be in the beginning stages of a new position called the centre bounce defender,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically exactly the opposite of what Dustin Martin and Rankin do. They play in the centre bounces, but then they push back behind the ball and basically become an extra defender. So basically, it's a defender that's in the centre bounce.
Yeah.
So I wonder what that's going to do. I wonder if Chris Scott's going to persist with that.
Yeah.
And how it goes. But you can't ignore the form of Hawthorn, who are just absolutely flying at the minute. So for this game, I will be reluctantly tipping Hawthorn because I hate tipping against Geelong at Cardinia Park.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Hawthorn are that good at the minute that I do think that their form is hard to ignore.
Oh yeah, 100%. I guess yeah, it's one of those games where really, if you want the Hawks to rubber stamp their credentials, they have to play well in this game, and I think they're genuine, not underdogs, but I say they're favourites. Geelong just, what they were known for back in the day with regards to their ability to dominate games was not necessarily speed on the ball, but just real accurate kicking, set up by the likes of Tom Stewart and co. And just, whenever St Kilda played them, we just couldn't get the ball off them realistically because they were just so accurate, chipping the ball left, right, centre. But it's one of those things where...
Well, I think since round 6...
Yeah.
Round 6 or 7, they're actually the second best side.
Yeah.
In the league.
Yeah.
I think only Sydney have a better record than them.
Oh, they're just so dominant. That's the thing.
So, it's remarkable what's happened.
Yeah, 100%.
In a short space of time with that.
Yeah. But I think I've tipped the Hawks. I think it's, those guys like Will Day, and Dylan Moore in particular, super coach related, of course. They're going to dominate that game. There's no real matchups. I think that the Cats can really match up with them. Or maybe Mark O'Connor goes to a Will Day as a like for like, kind of try and nullify him at stoppages. But I can see the likes of Dylan Morgan off the chain there. They're just so quick. And they're playing like they're nothing to lose, which is the benefit of, coming from bottom 2 realistically to now in a top 8 contention. But moving forward to the 7:30 games or the night games, this will be a big one on Saturday night at Energy Stadium. Giants versus the Blues. Obviously, Kane's got his blue baggers in this break, but what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, the Giants simply have to win this game.
Yeah, I know you've had your
to be blunt with you.
Yeah.
They cannot play or be a true contender if they can't win this game. As at home, I think they've got a pretty good record at home this year.
Yeah.
This is a must-win game for the Giants.
Yeah.
If they don't win this game, I'm going to say that they can't win the flag. It's that simple.
I don't think they were going to win the flag, I think, regardless, with the way they're playing. They've been playing horrendously, I think, of recent times. But I know you've had your
And I will refer back to what I said in our podcast on Monday or Tuesday about my thoughts on the Giants.
Yeah.
So, I still think for Kane, even though I've said the Giants are a must-win game, I think I'm still going to tip Carlton.
Mm-hmm.
very reluctantly.
Yeah.
But I think Carlton are just doing better than the Giants at the moment.
Mhm.
So I think Carlton will get my tip.
Yeah, I think they're pretty much in that conversation of top two or premiership contention alongside Sydney. So I don't see why not that they can really rubber stamp that credential into grand final contentions. I mean, you've got the likes of Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay dominating left, right, centre, and that midfield of Cripps and Walsh is, look how they smashed up Geelong pretty comfortably. But I think if GWS don't get their act together, they could get their pants pulled down against Carlton in that game. Moving to
Yeah,
later,
I think so as well.
yeah, exactly. Later that evening, you've got Freo versus Richmond. Obviously, this one's a bit of a snooze fest with how Richmond might be going of recent times. But this is played at Optus. Do you think there's any chance that Richmond can get an upset win here, or do you think they're in trouble?
I see one narrow window.
Yep.
And that is that the sides that Fremantle have struggled against are good at clearances.
Mm-hmm.
Richmond's game under Uzo is based around clearances.
Yeah.
The three of Fremantle's losses this year, they've been smashed in clearances. And they rely on clearances more than any other team. So that's my one window. In saying that, I'm still going to tip Freo.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd be silly not to. Do you think that, obviously, we'll link this back to Supercoach as well, with the midfield, they've got a dominant midfield now, a real young midfield brigade who've smashed up on a few teams. The likes of Sarong, Brayshaw, Hayden Young, Fife is magically turned back to about 25 in parts of the season. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think Richmond should be tagging? I know Adam Yze potentially flagged the idea, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I think he should tag.
Yeah.
Whether or not he's got the right player to tag is another question.
Oh, yeah.
We might find out in about 15 minutes when the team come out. But yes, I think Sarong probably needs some attention.
Mm-hmm.
I think his ball damage, especially at clearance, is too much.
Yeah.
And I think he can take the game away from Richmond on his own. So I think Freo just have too much class across the field.
Yeah.
And I think they should be winning this game probably by about sort of the 5 to 6 goals.
Yeah, I think you'd be frustrated as a Freo fan if it got anywhere close, or you'd be devastated really if it was an upset. But I think Freo it's a must-win game for them, and to really dominate at home, it's Optus. There's no real excuse. They play pretty well down there. They're essentially, I would say, top 6 side down there.
And the other thing too,
yeah,
is Freo have top 4. There's a massive race for top 4. They can't be dropping games like this.
Yeah.
If they want to finish in the top 4.
Oh, 110%. Yeah, I think it's a must not lose game for Freo. But moving to the Sunday games, historically for super coaches, you'd be well aware that they're the ones that ruin a team. Especially if you've got a captain playing in this one.
Yes, normally there's one day that does.
Yeah. My boys are playing at 3:10. We'll get to that in a minute. But the 1:10 game, the early game down at MCG, Melbourne versus West Coast Eagles. Obviously, if this was at Optus, I'd probably have a different narrative. But what are your thoughts on this one? Do you think Melbourne are finals worthy, or do you think they've really been disappointing this season and don't deserve to play finals?
Well, let's not forget that these teams only played about 6 or 8 weeks ago, and West Coast comfortably won.
Yeah.
The only problem this time for West Coast is that the game at the MCG and not at the Optus Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think that's a massive factor in this game.
Yeah.
I think Melbourne have been disappointing, but I did actually tip this in the pre-season.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like with everything that was going on, that they might sort of have a bit of a drop-off.
Yeah.
So I'm not really surprised. But I think they should be winning this game. But I think the bigger question for you, Thomas,
Mm-hmm.
is how many people are actually going to be at this game?
Yeah, I think sometimes we look at the MCG as the Coliseum of footy, and no doubt on the tomorrow night will be close to 90,000, 95,000 for sure. But games like this where you want your supporter base to really come out and support your boys in a game, they really should be winning to kind of solidify their chances of making finals or top four, especially like Melbourne. I could almost bet your bottom dollar that'll be about 20, 25, 30,000, and it will look shocking on TV. The West Coast cheer squad
I
will be
mean,
up and about.
these are the types of games that Icon Park would be perfect for.
Yeah.
Because it's a full ground, be an atmosphere there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas at the MPG, there's going to be more seagulls there than people probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, I feel like most of the Melbourne supporters might be up at Mambulla.
Yeah. You're probably not wrong.
So, yeah, I'll be tipping Melbourne for this game.
Yeah.
But not with a great deal of confidence.
Yeah. I mean, I'm tipping Melbourne there as well, but I could see them fall apart. We've got about 7 packs left, so towards the end of the stream. We'll go through the recap for those of you who purchased a box break spot about what you got, including base cards, everything. I'm trying to divvy them up as much as I can on this small desk. But moving forward to the 320 game. Kane just said, I love my Blues, but Port's colours are so good. I'm jealous of how good their cards look. Yeah, Port have a decent colour combination, Kane, but would rather be supporting the Blues than the Port. I don't really rate Port, especially after last week's heartbreak. But yeah, I really rate their retro Guernsey they released, I think in honour of the 2004 Premiership team. But moving on to the 320 blockbuster, we obviously St Kilda is my team. I know me, Nathan, and our other co-host Jonas, who isn't with us this season, unfortunately, due to work commitments. We are all heading down to that game, so it should be a pretty good game for us, hopefully. But what are your thoughts on this one? It's obviously 15th versus first, but do you think St Kilda have any chance before I butt in with my biased remarks? What are your thoughts on that game in particular?
I feel like St Kilda have a chance.
Yeah.
Only because Ross Lyon's there.
Yeah.
I feel like Ross Lyon, if there's any game where Ross Lyon's going to park the bus, it's going to be this game.
Yeah. 100%.
And I feel like this game, aesthetically, is going to be a horrible game.
Yeah.
But I think if St Kilda can keep this to like a 60 to 50 score, that's the only way I can see them beating Sydney.
Oh, yeah. I think, we obviously Ross Lyon prides himself on defence, and I think this is the one game, if anything, that it might be a snooze fest for the general population, but if we've got a chance here to make an upset and cause a bit of a stir, I think this is a game that we really need to try and dominate in regards not necessarily scoring, but defensively speaking. What are your thoughts on, before I kind of butt in a game, what are your thoughts on Ross Lyon's game style? Is it outdated? Obviously, we watched, if you saw the Brizzy Lions game where Ross made his, essentially his game plan fell apart in the first quarter with 31 points down. Almost like a switch of the flick came back on, and we looked very attacking all of a sudden, which was the most impressive thing. But then obviously against Power, where we had a chance to win at certain stage, we kind of reverted back to that defensive game plan, which was definitely frustrating to watch. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so the biggest problem right now with St Kilda is that they can't get bang for buck once they go inside 50.
Yeah.
A lot of their profile is actually very good. They can move the ball, they can defend.
Mm-hmm.
They've got issues with clearance.
Yeah.
But their biggest issue right now is that money ball kick inside 50.
Oh, yeah.
They just cannot hit a target to save their lives. And now with Max King out,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to make it better or worse.
Yeah.
So I think that's where St Kilda are letting themselves down.
Mm-hmm.
Because outside of that, their game is actually not too bad.
Get it. Yeah. I mean, I think...
Outside of clearance.
Yeah. I think you nailed it on the
Obviously,
head
clearance
there,
is another issue.
Nath, that I've said it before to a couple mates and obviously other St Kilda supporters, is that we kind of look pretty solid in the first 2/3 of the pitch, so defensively speaking and in more recent times midfield speaking. But it's definitely been frustrating that forward half is we consistently turn it over. You know, you look at
It's the money ball kick.
Yeah, exactly. Look at Supercoach statistics. Every half back in the world is licking their lips when they play St Kilda. They look like getting about 150 Supercoach points. But
As that money ball kick.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, as a club, they obviously Rob Harvey's our forward coach. I don't know if that's a right move.
got him from Collingwood.
Yeah, obviously he was a gun midfielder for us, and whether or not that's a mistake on St Kilda's behalf, or he's still learning the craft to coach a forward line. But it's pretty frustrating when you just see like the likes of Max King and Tim Embry when he's there, the small forwards, the ball just gets bombed in and they've got no chance. I mean, obviously the forward pressure is another kind of talking point, which I think we're struggling with. But yeah, you definitely feel sorry for Max King when the ball's being bombed on his head 9 times out of 10. But just before we move on to the late Sunday game, what are your thoughts on, obviously, the Max King injury? I've had my 2 cents worth. I think we'd be lucky enough to have the Saints TV podcast potentially on next week sometime to chat with him. But what are your thoughts on Max King? Do you reckon that St Kilda are better off without him playing, or do you think there are other issues stemming from that? And how do you think that the boys are going to line up on Sunday without Max King, and who do you think really needs to step up in that side for them to have a chance, or for us to have a chance?
Well, I'm actually going to have a bit of a controversial opinion here.
Yeah.
So I think St Kilda are better with Max King.
Yeah.
And I'm actually not surprised that he's been carrying an injury, which explains why he's been so down.
Mm-hmm.
Because you look at his brother Ben up on the Gold Coast, he's flying.
Yeah.
And Max, for whatever reason, just hasn't caught on.
Mm-hmm.
In saying that, though, I think I would rather have him in the lineup than not have him at all. Yes, it is going to be a loss for St Kilda.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, their forward line's going to look different. No, I don't think they're a better side without him.
Yeah.
But that's unfortunately just what they've got for the rest of the year, which might not be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because it means that I think what's he out for? Is it 4 months, 4 months?
Yeah, it's at least it's a PCL injury. Like I obviously am recovering from an ACL injury, which is worse. But a PCL injury, you know, you're looking at that 6-month block, and that's obviously end of season stuff. And they're going to take a real cautious approach with him, considering he's obviously done his ACL.
My friend here has just said that Max King's going to be the premier forward of the comp next season.
Yeah.
So if that's the case for St Kilda, they will be rising up the ladder very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So
hopefully, fingers crossed.
I think they just need him to come along, and I think a lot of their issues going inside 50 will be resolved.
Yeah, I think if you fix up that side of the game, and it's obviously a big fix, that'll be our ticket to success. And I think we're obviously trying to look at a premium midfield target and maybe another ruck to help Rowan Marshall. But I don't think we should be hunting around for an A-grade ruck. And I think we've got some talent in there. I think the likes of Isaac Kilo and Maxi Heath might come in this weekend and hopefully show what they're made of. But just before we move on to the final game of the round and the team lineups for that will hopefully be released in the next 2 minutes, we've just finished our box break hopefully you've enjoyed it. Probably wasn't the best box break in the world, considering I've seen some pretty good ones online, but it's obviously could be good fun. So just a recap of what we have here from the mess on my table. So let me just get up the list real quick. Just give me 2 seconds.
It doesn't look that bad.
Yeah, a couple good pulls, but can't complain. Where is it? So Peter, your little boy Jay, obviously, hopefully he's watching and having a good time. Dogs boys, I think you had the most successful pull, Jay. So just going flicking through the commons, you got Cody Waitman, Bailey Dale, Adam Trelaw, Bailey Smith, Luminous, Marcus Bontempelli, a big captain, Alice Edmonds from the AFLW. Got your Marcus Bontempelli, I don't know what it's exactly called, Luminous Refractor, but 486 out of 599, so not too bad there. Timmy English, the big ruckman. Katie Lynch, Aaron Norton, Bailey Smith, Jack McRae, Tom Liberatore again, Bailey Smith, Ellie Blackburn, Cody Waitman. Yeah, so not a bad pull from there. Corey, aka the ladies' man. I'm not exactly sure what that refers to, but I heard the Super Coach Sword Play boys going about it. Jai Simpkin, Griffin Logue, LDU. You've got a Stats King in the green, Liam Shields, probably the last season going around. Harry Sheasel, Cam Zerha, Curtis Taylor, Hugh Greenwood, Harry Sheasel again in the footy heads, Luke McDonald, and that's that.
If I can just interrupt,
Yeah.
Thomas. The teams are out.
Oh, we'll get to that in a minute. Hopefully there's a couple surprises there to talk about. DR, hope you're well. Josh Dunkley, Lockie Neal, Will Ashcroft, Jared Berry, Eric Hipwood. You got Joe Danaher in the Luminous. Brianna Conan from the AFLW, Charlie Cameron, Ali Anderson, Zach Bailey in the Luminous. You've got Charlie Cameron again in Stats King, Lockie Neal, and Nat Grider, Footy Heads, Kadeen Coleman, and I think that's about it. Cam Rayner, Joe Danaher, Hugh McCluggage, and Harris Andrews. I think that's it. So moving on to the last one, which was the Blues there, Kane. It said, I got a Premiership Richmond predictor in my break box today, and a Tim Taranto Brownlow predictor in the box before that. Don't know why my boxes think I love Richmond so much. I guess maybe they're trying to sway you away from the Blues. I'm not too sure, considering that's a big rivalry. Adam Sard, Paddy Cripps, Charlie Curnow, Jacob Wiedering, Adam Chera in the Luminous, Nina Morrison, Darcy Vesio, Tom DeConning, Blake Akers, Adam Chera, Sammy Walsh is a gun, Jesse Motlop, and that's that. So hopefully you enjoyed it. I will reach out to each of you who got a box break, and then I'll contact you just regards to your contact details, and the easiest way to send it to you. As I said, I'll probably get them through as a lettered post, and put a bit of bubble wrap as well just to protect the cards. Let me know if you want the double ups as well. Obviously, if you don't want them, there's no need for them because it just bulks up everything. It's a bit of a waste of space. But if you do want them for XYZ reason, please let me know. Now, before we get to the juicy stuff with regards to team reveals, let's quickly go through the last game of the round, which is the Lions versus the Crows. What is your thoughts on that, Nathan? Obviously, the last game of the round, and two teams that really need to win to show their worth in finals, or more so for Adelaide to save Matthew Nick's career.
Yeah, so I was quite surprised when I heard on Tuesday night that Adelaide are actually the second best side without the football in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So as in they're defeating the second best out of any of the 18 sides. Now, that probably would surprise a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
In saying that, though, Brisbane's offensive game is miles clear of everyone at the minute, and I think that will come under a lot of pressure up at the Gabba.
Yeah.
So I will be picking Brisbane to win that game probably pretty comfortably.
Yeah. I think Adelaide are in a world of hurt. I don't exactly know what's going on there. Matty Crouch, I mean, from a football point of view, didn't really set the world on fire, but from a Supercoach sense, was definitely quite dominant. I don't know what's happened. Obviously, he was injured for the rest of the season. I don't think they've got too many concerns with regards to player unavailability. There's just a serious disconnect in the kind of communication between coach and player, and I don't know if Matthew Nicks is going to last too much longer from what I hear from the fans. That's for sure. But moving swiftly forward, I don't know. I've had issues all day with trying to get the share screen. Maybe, Nathan, you can have a shot at trying to share your screen just to show the teams. Otherwise, we can just chat about them based off what we can see. But whilst I get my screen up, whilst you have a fiddle of that.
Now, I think you can see my screen now.
Give me 2 ticks. Can you scroll?
I hope.
Oh no. I don't know what's wrong. Maybe. Have you shared it?
Yeah. What about that?
Nah, that's alright. We'll have a fiddle with it.
Because I'm screen sharing, I can see it on my end.
Maybe it's my webcam. Kane just said he's got to get going, but I'll keep in contact Facebook. Thanks, Kane. Appreciate the support of the stream.
Oh, now I've gone off the stream. Hang on.
Oh, there you go. You're back. Stuart Hatfield says Jared Witt's out north, going to win by 100 under the roof on Saturday. Yeah. Jared Witt's has got an awkward injury, which is frustrating, I guess. I don't know why we can't get this.
Hang on. I'm going to stop and see.
Otherwise, we can just talk about it. I don't think it's a big deal about having a shot on screen.
What about that?
No, it could be just my actual video capture. Let me just shut that one off.
I think it's actually mine.
If I disconnect now. Let me just add the screen myself and let's see if this works. Can you see the AFL screen now?
Yeah, I've got them up on my...
No, on my thing.
I've got them up on my thing. Oh, hang on.
What can you see now? Can you see the AFL teams?
Hang on. Close this. Yeah, I can see yours.
Ah, cool.
I can see it.
Yeah, easy. All right, cool. Let's move on to the lineups. We've got in Charlie Dean, Lockie Schultz, Ned Long, out McCreary, Sullivan, Noble. In the Dons, Dylan Shield, Jake Kelly, Nate Caddy, Dyson Heppel's been managed, Goldie's been managed, and Shai Menzies omitted. Any noticeable issues there or any pretty sweet sailing with regards to that?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm not surprised. Hang on, I'll start that again. I'm not surprised that Lockie Sullivan's been dropped.
Yeah.
He has been a bit off the last few weeks. I think he was probably in need of a break.
Yeah.
I predicted by myself just about 45 minutes ago, Todd Goldstein has been dropped. I know it says managed, but that'll be dropped.
Yeah.
And Nate Cady has come back in, which I think I said that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm not really surprised by any of that.
Yeah.
Perfect opportunity probably to manage Hale and whatnot. And obviously, no McCreary, no real surprises.
Mm-hmm.
I would just keep a watch on Josh Dacos. He's been named, but I don't think he's any guarantee to actually play.
Yeah. Wait, who was this? Sorry.
Josh Dacos.
Yeah. What makes you say that?
Well, he suffered a corky last week, and he has struggled this week with training.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he's a laid out.
Yeah. Who do you think will come in for the Pies then, if that was the case?
Well, looking at the emergencies, it'd probably be Finn McRae.
Yeah.
But again, the emergencies are just there. They can bring someone else in off the list. It's not an emergency. I think they just got to pay for it.
Yeah.
I think they got to pay X amount to bring them in. But I think out of the emergencies that are listed, it'll be probably Finn McRae.
Yeah. That probably makes the most sense. Moving onwards to the next game lineups. Oh, if this ever loads. North versus the Suns. So obviously we obviously heard that Jared Witch is injured. I think it's a back injury related, so he'll be out for about a month. The obvious one here, Colby McKercher coming in for Zach Fisher. That's a like for like. A Ned Moyle coming in for Witts like for like. What are your thoughts on? Obviously, I know you've been playing heavily draft related, but what are your thoughts on McKercher being a viable option? I think he's just priced under 400,000. Zach Fisher, obviously, news was brought out today that he was injured with that kind of foot issue. Do you think there's any chance that McKercher, gets 100 plus average from here on in with the role, or do you think, he might peter out, or there might be a change up in kind of who takes the kickouts and the distribute off halfback? Obviously, Fisher was the one doing that. But now that could be Harry Sheasel, obviously named off halfback. What are your thoughts on that one?
I don't think I'd be picking him in Classic.
Yep.
As a draft option, he could be a bit of a left field one.
Mm-hmm.
But in saying that, Dusty Moore's got a bit of a villain on at the minute. End of Petrarca's season, and now he's put Witts out for a month.
Yeah.
So left, right, I don't know who's. Yeah. As for I don't think that changes my prediction. I still think Gold Coast should be winning this game as much as Stuart Hatfield, as much as Stu says that North are going to win by 100 points. Yeah. I just can't say it happening, Stu. So unfortunately for you, if you're going on Saturday, I think you're going to watch your side lose again.
Yeah, I don't think you could be right there. Let's move on to the next game, which is Port and the Dogs. Jace Burgoyne back in the side. He was obviously an exciting youngster. Frankie Evans as well. Josh Sin, which is, I guess, unfortunate for those who brought him in as a rookie price player, and Will Lorenz. He's been omitted, which has been a bit unfortunate for those of you who brought him as a rookie option. Nick Caulfield suddenly back in the side. He's been a bit of a funny one considering he hurt his shoulder or popped that out. So that could be an actual rookie option considering I don't think he actually went up in price since his injury. Buku Kama's back in, Lockie McNeil back in, and Waitman out again with, I'm assuming, that elbow injury. Liam Jones out and Oscar Baker out. Any surprises that team list there, or do you think that's pretty stock standard?
Well, I'd be interested to see this Bulldogs defensive model without Liam Jones there. He's such a big part of that defence that him being out there might change a few tipsters away from the Bulldogs, given the role that he's done over the last, basically the year.
Mm-hmm.
at nullifying the best forwards in the game. So,
Yep.
and Cody Waitman being out's a bit interesting as well. I know it broke today that I think he was injured anyway. But that was news to me. So sorry for everyone out there. But no, not really surprised. I still think Port Adelaide should win based on those sides.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be a tight game. That's for sure. I know I've tipped the Dogs in a close one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Port kind of after their close win against our boys, I think try and bounce back. And obviously, Dogs are very frustrating to watch at the best of times. But moving on to the 4:35 game. Lineups there. Sean Manners back in. So I know Team Michelle, who's the organiser or does a lot of the behind the scenes with Supercoach, will be keen to hear he's back. Oliver Henry back in. Mark O'Connor omitted, which would be music to the sounds of those ears who were concerned about tagging possibilities. Jai Clark omitted. Super frustrating, I think, for myself included, who still got him. Luke Bruce, Mitch Lewis in. James Sicily injured with, I'm assuming, that issue with his shoulder being popped out, and Cal Sheardia, which have been, I guess, would be frustrating considering he was actually doing quite well as a key forward. What are your thoughts there on those sides? And do you think the likes of Will Day, James Warple, Dylan Moore will pop off now?
Well, it's actually interesting that Sicily's out because I actually was going to tip Hawthorn based on him playing.
Yeah.
But now that he's not out there, last year we saw when he missed, Hawthorn just fell apart defensively.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only question mark I've got now on that Hawthorn tip.
Yeah.
Is what does their defensive model look like without him there? Because in the past, it has fallen apart without him.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So I feel like Mark O'Connor being out will relieve a lot of people with either Newcomb or Will Day of headaches because they don't have to probably worry about the tag.
Yeah.
So I still think I'm going to Hawthorn, but not with as much confidence.
Yeah, that's understandable. I guess moving forward, I don't think there's any really relevancy. Jai Clark, I think if you still have him, he probably is time to trade. He's got to break even higher than his average. He's done his job as much as it's been a slow bloody burn. I think he's been a good one. Moving swiftly on to the Giants Blues, this will be an interesting one. Who's been picked? I haven't heard any news. Aaron Cadman back in. James Peatling, Darcy Jones, Callum Brown, Josh Kelly injured. I think he's out for about 5 weeks. I think with that injury, I don't exactly know what it is, but it's not great. Max Kruzowski, the rookie's out, obviously, with people coming back. Tom DeConning back in. He's one that's been gangbusters of recent times, Supercoach-wise, if you picked him up at a decent price. Matty Cottrell, the excitement machine. Mark Pitney omitted, which is big news for Tom DeConning honours because it means that DeConning's solo ruck, which is big news, and Georgie Hewitt being omitted is probably not bad for the midfield crew because there's one less mouth to feed in that midfield group. What are your thoughts on these teams, and in particular Tom DeConning? I kind of want your view on, first of all, do you reckon he's the key to Blues' ruck concerns about having initially 2 rucks, then DeConning going solo and dominating Supercoach-wise in particular? Or do you think that he's kind of going to tie out? Obviously, he was managed last week. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, I think Carlton need DeConning in their side to win the premiership.
Yeah.
I think it's that simple now. I think he's their best ruckman, and Pidnett's a second ruckman. Unfortunately for Pidnett, DeConning can also go forward, and I think they can get away with Harry Mackay or even Mitch McGovern as that second ruck. So I don't think he really serves a purpose in there.
Mm-hmm.
As for Hewitt, I'm not surprised that Hewitt's been dropped. I've always felt like they probably had one too many midfielder. And I
Yep.
think Hewitt's just simply unlucky because of who else is in there.
Mm-hmm.
And as for the Giants, yeah, I think Josh Kelly being out's big news. It's big news for my draft team because I do have him.
Yeah.
So I've had to move him on.
Mm-hmm.
In saying that, I still maintain what I said earlier. This is a must-win game for the Giants. The fact that Kelly's not there is going to make it harder.
Yeah.
I will still tip Carlton, but as I said, it's a must-win game for the Giants.
Yeah, I think they'd be very frustrated if they slip up on this one. I mean, it'd be a tough game regardless, but at home it's a different story with them. Moving swiftly forward to Freo and Richmond. Looking at those, Brennan Cox is back. Michael Walters is back, which is big for them. Hugh Davies, obviously the youngster's been omitted. Brandon Walker injured, so Brennan Cox and Brandon Walker like-for-like replacement in the D50. Noah Cumberland in for the Tigers playing that half-forward role, and then Dusty Martin being managed, which is huge. Obviously, on a super coach sense, I don't think there's too much to talk about here. Brennan Cox playing a bit more taller key defensive post, obviously with Alex Pearce out for a while. Probably should free up Jordan Clark and Luke Ryan to do what they want, really, considering Brennan Cox is a bit more a liability in defence, I'd say, in comparison to Pearce. But what are your thoughts on Dusty in particular? Obviously managed this game. Do you think he's gone by the end of this year, or do you think there's a bit of, whether he moves on to a different club, or do you think he's just a one-club player and will retire at the end of this year?
Well, I hope he stays as a one-club player.
Yeah.
But the lure of the sun and the fact that Gold Coast are going places would be hard to turn down.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Hardwick nosing back to front would be very enticing.
Yeah.
But I think the simple case of this game is Fremantle's ins are better than their outs.
Mm-hmm.
And Richmond's out is better than the player coming in. So I think Fremantle have gotten better, Richmond have gotten worse.
Yeah.
So I think Fremantle, I'll refer back to what I said earlier, Fremantle should be winning this game.
Yeah, I think you are 100% right. Moving on to the...
And I should just point out as well...
Yeah, go ahead.
That Uze did flag this last week that if he played in the last game against Carlton, that he wouldn't make the trip across to Perth. So he's kept his word.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. With an ageing body as good as Dusty is, I think there is some limitations to how he's going to go this season. Moving forward to these versus the Eagles. Sunday games. Oh, this is a big one. Melksham, Salem, Laurie, Bowie, Fulton in, Petty out injured, Kynham Brown omitted. I mean, that was coming considering he was late in as well. Harvey Johnston, Jack Williams, Harry Edwards, Jack Hutchinson in for the Eagles, and Matty Flynn out injured. Which, big news, I guess, with Maxi Gorn. I guess you could probably be a safe captaincy option with Flynn out. However, last time, I don't think he did overly too well. They had a plan in place for him and executed quite nicely. Obviously, with the Ds, Andy Moyner's Wakefield did a very good job as a debutant last week, and he's kept his spot off the half-back line, or at least listed on the half-back line. McGovern is named, for those of you like myself who've got him in the side. I think there were some concerns last week with regards to a hand issue that he kind of shrugged off. But what are your thoughts on what does West Coast need to do to win this game? Obviously, it's at the G, so home away from home in regards to most teams wanting to play at the G more often. But what are your thoughts on West Coast needing to, how are they going to win this game? Dimensions are pretty similar with Optus and MCG. But what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I know it's easier said than done, but they just need to play Melbourne exactly the same as they did last time.
Yeah.
And they'll win the game again.
Yeah.
In saying that, though, it's a lot harder to do away from home.
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly touching on Melbourne, I'm surprised that Sorry, I'll start that again. I'm surprised that Tom Fullerton hasn't been named until now, given Melbourne's forward line woes. And even then, I don't know what his role is exactly going to be. Is he going to be a ruckman who comes on and then goes back to the bench? Is he going to be a ruckman and go forward?
Yeah.
So, is he going to play as a key forward? And that's it. So, there's a bit of a question mark there with that role. If it is a ruck forward role, I wonder what's going to do Max Storm, given that he's now going to have a chop out.
Yeah.
But then I wonder what it's also going to do to Melbourne's forward line, given that they're going to have an extra tall down there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I agree in the sense that Melbourne are very similar with regards to their deficits against St Kilda and the fact that their forward line is just a mess. You look at their forward line listed: Van Rooyen, Langdon, Sparrow, Pickett, Fritsch, Melksham. There is that one key forward in Van Rooyen who's, in a not similar vein to Max King with kind of hype and media kind of criticism, but in the fact that it's their one key forward which they rely so heavily on for contested marking. You look at the rest of them, it's just pace around the ball. Fritsch does play tall, very similar to Membry, but you look at the similarities in that side compared
He's
to
not a key forward.
Yeah, exactly. It's Membry wasn't a key forward either, so you look at the similarities there, and he's eerily similar with the style of plays in there. And the struggles it seems like both teams are having. It seems like the small forwards aren't good enough for the Ds at the moment, and the kind of high half forwards aren't putting that pressure on, which is exactly the same as St Kilda's woes. And you'd argue Melbourne's got the talent with regards to your Olivers, your Varneys, your Neil Bullens in there doing a job to send the ball inside 50 with a lot more danger, but it's just not happening for them. And you look at West Coast with Barras and McGovern, they're going to pick it off all day long if Melbourne aren't careful. So it could be an upset on the cards, but I think the G is just going to really suit D's and they can bounce back. 2 games left before we wrap it up and quickly touch on my Supercoach trades. At least I know Nathan's heavily involved in draft. But St Kilda versus the Swans. This is interesting because I haven't actually seen the teams yet. Howard, Philippou, Membry, Zach Jones still in, Jesus Christ. Ryan Burns, Ben Payton, Max King injured, Cameron injured, we all knew that. Paddy Dow, I don't think, got up with his ankle injury. Robbie Fox, Matt Roberts, Lockie McAndrew, Paddy Snells, and Harry Cunningham out, which is not a bad one for St Kilda supporters. I think Cunningham is a bit underrated as a defender. They've got a lot of youngsters playing off the bench. I don't know how many players will actually get through to the best 22. But just looking at the St Kilda lineup there, how would it like for replacement? I know Caminiti was training down back or played the last 2 games down back and was quite successful. Philippou's been training the house down in the VFL and probably rightly rewarded so with a spot well deserved. Membry, I think, is well needed as a bit of, even though he's been out of form, he's been well needed as a leadership perspective of bringing that forward line together. Looking at that forward line, they haven't decided. I thought they were going to go with the likes of Showmaker, Isaac Hill or Maxi Heath, but they just haven't decided to do that. So they decided to play a little bit smaller, which could work out considering that, the Swans don't have the tallest back line, but you look at McCartan and Melican already are 2 talls that could really feast on that if St Kilda aren't careful. But obviously they're looking at a different kind of way of getting the ball inside 50. Zach Jones, I don't know how he still gets a game, unfortunately, but he could be the sub. Ryan Burns and Ben Patton, I think Ben Patton's not a bad one to have. What are your thoughts on the team selections here? And I guess I asked you this beforehand when we were doing the box break, but what do you think is the best way of St Kilda scoring now that King isn't there as that central target point? I know Mason Wood was one that was a success story moving or swinging forward and as a mismatch option. What are your thoughts on St Kilda's scoring capabilities in this new kind of look forward line for this weekend?
Well, I think the way St Kilda want to put the ball inside 50 would be ideal for a wet, cold, windy day at the MCG.
Mm-hmm.
Just put the ball on the ground and let the forwards get to work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, it's going to be under the roof. I think the Sydney backline will just pick off all of St Kilda's forward entries.
Yeah.
So in saying that, there'll probably only be 3 changes. So we should just point out that the Sunday teams haven't been announced. They will be announced till about 5 o'clock tomorrow.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you go on the AFL website, you'll see that there's currently 8 interchange players. That will come down to 5 with 3 emergencies tomorrow night. So the Sunday teams are a bit of a prediction, but at least we've got a bit of an idea on who's going to be named.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
So I still will be tipping Sydney for this game, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same, I think, as a St Kilda supporter. Just looking at the benches here, I think if you look at this one, my guess of the four would probably be Hunter Clark definitely as a shoe-in. Dan Butler, his pressure was immense last week. They're the two that automatically get in. Darcy Wilson, I think, deserves a spot. And Ari Showmaker, he's that defensive kind of rotation. Just looking at that, the sub-vest will be either Jones, Burns, Patton, and Campbell. My guess would be either Campbell or Patton. Campbell purely because of the double rock combo, and Patton as a bit of a can play everywhere. Looking at the Sydney Swans bench, I don't know too many of them well enough, but Braden Campbell, Robbie Fox, Sam Wicks, McLean, Clayton Cleary, Matt Roberts, Lockie McAndrew, Paddy Snells. From my guess, would just be Braden Campbell as a defensive rotation. Robbie Fox is kind of a swing forward back. Hayden McLean is that key forward rotation, and then probably anywhere between Roberts and Wicks for the sub vest or the last rotation spot. But moving forward to the lucky last game of the round, the Lions versus Crows. Looking at that lineup, don't think there is any suspect choices here. Payne, Tunstall, Darcy Ford added into the side. Brodie Smith, which I believe would just be a swap out for a swap in for Will Hamill's injury. Borlase, Chase Jones, and Chris Burgess. No real, changes there. Sam Berry and Ross Shelley's milestone game, so I guess the Crows will be up and about for this one. But looking at the Crows side, obviously they're playing away from home. Brisbane barely lose against any team in the Gabba. What are your thoughts, Nath, on how do you think the Crows can beat the Lions, if anything?
Well, I think the Crows have to make this like St Kilda, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just a scrappy game, contested game. But I think at the Gabba it's going to be too hard to do.
Yeah, 100%. I think you nailed that on the head, and I think looking at the tag-wise, Dawson's got to have a huge game, I think, as a kind of inspirational skipper moment to really drag this team across. He's going to cop attention 100% from Jared Berry. It'd be interesting to see what they do with Isaac Rankin. He's in my trade plans this week, Supercoach perspective-wise, but he dominated the inside 50s for the Crows when he was in there against GWS, and GWS played...
You got to tag him.
Yeah, absolutely no sort of respect whatsoever to Rankin. Who knows what happens? Just looking at that side, I wouldn't be surprised if Starcevic just tries to body him at every contest in that inside 50, and Barry maybe pivots to him at stoppages just to provide body when he's in the midfield. But who knows with that one? I think the Lions are just going to be too strong. If you have the likes of Dunkley and Neal, I think they're two that could dominate this game. Maybe Berry goes to O'Neill, but someone like a Dunkley is usually very underrated in these type of games. It has a pretty good history against the Crows. But moving swiftly forward, just before we wrap it up, I know it's been quite a lengthy stream. Looking at my side, can you see this, Nath? Can you see my Supercoach side?
Not at the minute, but your screen hasn't the screen updated.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just verbally say it if you guys can't see.
I'll let you know
for whatever reason. So at the moment, I'm ranked. I spoke about this on Spills' pod on the chat with Spills earlier this week, but I'm ranked 2,000.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Cool. 2,700, which has been frustrating for me considering I'm just outside the top 1K prior to the buys commencing. I've had probably 2 out of the 4 buys. Not necessarily been poor scores by any means, but more so my premiums haven't fired as best as they would, like the likes of Sarong, Merritt, Butters, Steele, Heaney, McGovern, Martin, all had really strong starts, all that, and that middle period where I was going up the ranks very quickly, but yeah, just had a really poor kind of buy section, which really was frustrating. Looking trade-wise, I've got 5 trades left. I think for me, it's kind of now or never if I really want to push for that 1K finish or inside the 1K finish. Don't have too much money in the kitty, which is frustrating, but I think what I'm going to do, and I would like to hear your opinion, Nathan, obviously having played Classic last season, still out for Connor Rosie at this point. And my second option would be Zach Fisher out. I know might be only out for 1 week, but I'll have my reasonings for that one. Rankin in or Caldwell, but I've got money for Rankin, which I think I might do. What are your thoughts on that one as a first option? I'll tell you that first. And my second option, I guess, with the news that Jai Clark's been omitted, I guess try and get the cash in. Keep Steele for 1 more week. I'm thinking, what's his break even like? 121. Ugh. Tough one, but potentially keep Steele considering he's scoring okay. Trade Clark out for the money. Bring in Humphreys from, I think his name's Humphreys. Lawson Humphreys, who had a
Bailey Humphrey.
Yeah, no, Lawson Humphrey from the Cats, who had a strong game playing that half kind of hybrid half back role. And then trading out obviously Fisher again because I don't think he's in my plans moving forward. Then moving in Rankin or obviously Caldwell, probably looking at Rankin. And then with the money I get next week, trading out Steele, depending on how he goes against the Swans, because he's still averaging 108, just doesn't look like the Steele of old. And then bringing in the likes of maybe a Josh Dunkley or who else can I get? If I just reset that trade, maybe not Dunkley if I can't afford it, but if I trade out Steele again, my options would probably be the week after, would be the likes of, not Robot, maybe Paddy Cripps is a bit of a pod move. Rory Laird is one I don't mind the look of, and that's about it really. And maybe Noah Anderson as an option, but yeah, around that price mark as well. What are your thoughts on those two trades? Do you prefer the sideways of those two or premiums? Well, Zach Fisher's, premiums was stretch, but trading out the Steele to get the likes of Rosie as a not budget option with a low break even and using that money to get to Rankin, or chucking out Clark at his kind of maxed out value, getting in Humphreys, who looks pretty strong and has DPP eligibility, bringing in the likes of Rankin or Caldwell, and then using that money saved up to get an upgrade to either maybe Martin out or Steele out. What are your thoughts on that one?
I'm just having a look at your side now for my end.
Yep.
I don't think you can carry Zach Fisher, unfortunately, with Nathan Kruger on the bench.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be able to rely on Nathan Kruger.
Yeah.
So I think, unfortunately, you're either going to have to trade Fisher or just cop whatever Kruger puts up.
Yeah. No,
I think Jack
agree.
Steele's he's not going the greatest, but he's still playing. But I think Fish is more of a priority, given that he's not playing, and the fact that you're going to push up into the top 1,000.
Yeah.
You need every point you can get.
Yeah.
And I think that Rankin will outscore Kruger.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between Steele and Rose is probably not going to be a lot.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think Steele and Rosie's got the ceiling. Steele has shown he's got the ceiling, obviously injury not related. But yeah, it's a tough one. I guess my last question before we wrap up the stream, I know it's been a long one, as I mentioned, but obviously a lot of people are in the boat where they may not have the cover for Fisher, or they want to get rid of Fisher for rank purposes, or they think they can get to Rankin or Caldwell. Just looking at those two trade options real quickly, Fisher, if I trade him out, you got Rankin at, I'm going to discount Dylan Moore because we've already spoken about him on our round review on Monday.
Rankin's 578.
Yes, 578k, and let me just sort by highest price. Rankin's 578k and Caldwell's 505. So if you look at the price difference, that's a big 72k you're saving. Rankin obviously has showed, regardless of where he's playing, he's going to score pretty well if they don't put attention to him. Caldwell, as I mentioned on the Monday podcast, or the round review podcast, he has this habit where he's playing as a kind of a tagging role or following around the best player, and it drags him to the footy. And if he cleans up disposal efficiency, it looks really dangerous. He scored a massive 127. It could have been a 150 at that point if he converted some of his disposal efficiency. But what are your thoughts on those two in particular, quickly? Because I know a lot of people or super coaches out there are in that position where they want to get rid of Fisher and have that option of pivoting to Rankin or Caldwell. Caudle's break even, just for those of you interested, of 47. He's going to get that against the Pies. Rankin, 114. So
114.
it's a big difference with regards to break even. Rankin, you're buying on his max price. As I said, Brisbane would be crazy to not have attention on Rankin. And Caldwell doesn't look like a tagging possibility. Merritt's the number one target in there. You know, Caldwell does defensive stuff. What are your thoughts on those two in particular?
Well, if you go and Rankin v Caldwell,
Yeah.
I'd be purely going Caldwell
Mm-hmm.
because you're saving 70k.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at this time of the year, having DPP flexibility is so vital.
Yeah.
That I think you're getting Caldwell basically before he shoots up, and Rankin's basically at his highest price, as you said earlier.
Yeah, 100% agree.
The only exception to that is if you are like a top 50 player and you need every point you can get to try and get to the number one rank.
Yeah.
Then obviously you'd be going for Rankin.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I think you can get away with going with Caldwell.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think I've talked myself into Caldwell, surprisingly enough, but we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. I'll have to have another think about it because, you know, obviously if I wait on Fisher and obviously Kruger plays the Dons tomorrow night, there's a chance in the world that Kruger goes 100, hypothetically speaking, very, very unlikely, but there is a chance, you know, mathematically speaking. So, yeah, we'll see. But I do like the look of Caldwell at 500k compared to Rankin at 600k almost, because I've had history in my side. I look at English at buying at 600 plus, and Merritt I bought at 600 plus. Martin stupidly brought in, which was frustrating as hell. He's dropped all the way down to 500. So you look at kind of that method of buying low and selling high. You just have to look at the legs of those players to see it's probably not worthwhile. And as much as I love Rankin, he's, I would say, more of a possibility of getting a shitter score than Caldwell, who's a bit more consistent. You just have to look at his previous scores. That I think the biggest knock on him was his ability to score that 130 plus, but he's definitely capable of doing it in his new role. And I think Essendon would be pretty silly to get rid of him now. Parrish is a couple weeks away still, and Setterfield is very injury prone. And if anything, Setterfield maybe helps that defensive game style, which allows Caldwell to be more attacking. But yeah, I think that's all we got time for today. We're going to have a chat with Nathan again. He's a staunch Pies fan, as you're all aware. That hopefully can have a chat about him, about the Pies, and a bit more analysis, and it'll be after the Pies-Dons game. So if the Dons manage to sneak a win, I don't think he'll be too pleased about that. And we could see a fair whack coming the Pies' way. And we'll have a bit of a chat with him about draft as well, because I know he's doing really well in the draft scene, especially in his league. I know he has taken a step back from the classic scene this year. Hopefully we'll get him back next year, and hopefully with him and his experience with draft, we can get a bit of insight about how the draft system works. I know a lot of you guys that play Supercoach, guys and girls, do play both Supercoach Classic and have a draft league with your workmates or mates at school or whatnot. So it's a really fun way of engaging yourself in Supercoach without the need of having to research players as much. And it almost feels like Supercoach is a full-time gig sometimes, with the amount of news that gets popped out every single minute and how that impacts the side with subs and all that. But other than that, we'll see you next week. Got some exciting content coming up. We should be lucky enough to have Janeth from the Third Man Up crew, as well as the Supercoach Sword Play crew, talking about Blues footy and his excellent season to date. And Saints TV podcast boys coming on board. I know Jakey, I've had a chat with him and had previous podcasts with him, so hopefully have a bit of a deeper dive into the St Kilda analysis coming from a supporter who's really invested in the club. And later in the week we might be lucky enough to have a chat with Supercoach, with DR Legend himself, who has kind of steadied that ship with the Supercoach Sword Play crew to talk all things Brisbane. But other than that, hopefully you all enjoyed the stream. I know this is a one-off. I know a couple of you guys have asked for this to happen again and have really enjoyed it, but we'll see how we go. I know that Causa, he voted on our thing on Instagram, wanting a team coach box break, so that could be an option next week. We'll have to have a see about that, but I know I've really enjoyed it, and hopefully Nathan as well. And we'll catch you next